everyone, it's Miss Carrie with Miss Carrie's Creations, and today we have another creative design team video collab for you. Our creative design team has some wonderful projects for you using that Everyday Moments Forever Friends layout. Links to each one of our design team members has been placed in the description below. Make sure you click on each one so that you can see all of our wonderful projects using that new Everyday Moments collection. On my layout today, I am going to be using the Mix Ins paper pack. These papers are designed to match all of the other papers in our current collections. Aren't these just beautiful? I'm going to be using these two patterns on my layout, but as you can see, there is quite an array of patterns that you can choose from that Mix Ins collections. Each one is double-sided, and they are perfect for all of your springtime projects. Now I want to show you how I use these papers as inspiration to create my layout in Design Space. Here we have the Everyday Moments collection. This layout here, called Friends Forever, is the one that our design team is going to play with today. So I'm going to select that image. Along with the Forever Friends layout, I'm going to be using a few images from this single page alphabet layout and a couple of images from the Everyday Life layout here at the top. After we insert those images into our canvas, I want us to take a closer look at this Forever Friends layout. This circular border around the layout is designed to cut tiny little circles around your scrapbook page, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a minute. There's also a floral wreath, some photo holders, this torn bits of paper, the title that says Forever Friends, and some flowers and leaves. Now I'm going to start deleting all of the images from these three layouts that I do not plan on using in my design. I am holding down the Control key, or Command if you have a Mac, and I'm selecting each one of the images in the Layers panel. Once I have chosen all the images I wish to get rid of, I'm going to choose Delete. I'm going to ungroup each one of these sets of images so that I can start playing with all of the individual designs to create my layout. Once they're ungrouped, I can pull apart each one of these images from their grouped design and be able to take a look at each one individually. This past Christmas, my husband gifted me with a Cricut maker, and I have been wanting to use that perforation tool to create a faux stitched border. I'm going to do that by first inserting a square into my layout and resizing it to the size I need. I need to change the line type to perforation, but before I do that, I need to change my machine type. Right now it is set to my Explorer, and I need to change it to my Cricut Maker. Once I have switched to the other machine, I can now choose perforation in the line type, align the two squares centered, then attach them together. By attaching these two together, we are telling Cricut Design Space that both of these need to be placed and cut out on the same mat. Now I want to show you how I use some of these images to design my layout. I'm starting with that torn piece that came with the Forever Friends images. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and then I'm going to change the color to yellow for that patterned paper we're using in the mix-ins, and I'm going to stretch it out to create a background piece for my page. Now I want to grab that chevron piece, and this one is going to be cut out of that blue mix-ins paper. And I'm going to place it atop that yellow piece, line it up, resize it, and it's ready to go on my layout. Before I add any more elements to the page, I want to get my photos placed. So I'm resizing each one of those photo mats, recoloring them, and I'm adding them to the layout. I want to make sure I use this floral wreath image on my layout. After all, it is a pretty substantial image of that Forever Friends image we are all using as a design team. To me, it is a little bit too big as is, so I'm resizing it and I'm rotating it to place behind the photo. Now that I have all of the background pieces in place, I can take those Everyday Life flowers that I've turned into sunflowers, place them onto the page, add the leaves, and add a few of those leaf branches around my wreath. Let's take a look at the finished design on my canvas. As you can see, I've used quite a few images from that Forever Friends layout, as well as the alphabet page and the Everyday Life page. Before I cut anything out, I always check the color sync, and here's why. Looking at these layers, I'm showing two shades of white. I only have one sheet of white cardstock, so I'm going to drag that top layer down to the next layer of white images. Now everything will cut out of one sheet of white cardstock. Remember how that border is going to be cut using my perforation tool? If you don't own a maker or you don't own the perforation blade, I do want to give you a little bit of information on that. First of all, you're going to see here, it tells me I need to load that basic perforation blade. Let me show you what it looks like and how to load it into the machine. Tools like the perforation blade go inside the maker's quick swap housing. You press this button at the top, place it down into the blade, remove your finger off the button, and it's locked in place. Now you can remove it from its protective case and place it in your maker machine. To place this inside your maker machine, you're going to remove your cutting blade, then you're going to grab that quick swap housing, making sure that the little open gear portion is in the back, close the clamp, and lock it in place. It's hard to see here on camera, but that perforation blade created a stitch-like look all the way around my white cardstock. You want to be very careful removing this from your mat. After all, that perforation blade is designed to create a tear-away portion from your project, and we don't want this tearing away from our white cardstock. So I'm just taking my spatula, going around the edge, then I'm going to flip my mat over, pull the mat away from the cardstock, and it's ready for my project. I've placed that background piece on top of some saffron cardstock and realized I want an edge of saffron. Unfortunately, Design Space does not allow us a cut bigger than 11.5 inches, and my background is going to measure 11 3/4 inches. So I'm going to have to go around my project and carefully trim off 1/8 of an inch from each side. Now I can adhere that white cardstock onto the saffron cardstock. Personally, I believe this looks much better with that little edging of saffron. Here we have everything ready for assembly. I have these sunflowers cut out of canary cardstock and I have dry embossed them with an embossing folder. I also have these leaves cut out of white daisy cardstock and vellum, some more leaves that have been cut out of white daisy cardstock and green apple cardstock, these 2 paper strips cut from those mix-in paper patterns, the floral wreath, which is super delicate, so be careful taking it off your mat, and these 2 photos which I have backed in white daisy and candy apple cardstock. I've brought in my VersaMat and my straight tool to place down the yellow mix-ins paper. I talk about using these 2 tools in my chevron border layout, which you can see using the link above. After I have adhered this down onto the background piece, I decided that I wanted to lay down a small piece of white trim. I like how this white trim adds to the country feel of this layout. Off camera, I did add a little bit of white stitching above that trim for some added texture and a finished look at the base of the layout. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the pieces to my page. Again, I'm using my VersaMat to make sure that this chevron piece is straight across the page. Now I'm going to grab my photos and that floral wreath. Before gluing down that floral wreath, I want to make sure that its placement is where I want it on the page. I don't want to cover up too much of it, but I do want to make sure that some of it sticks out below the photos. Now that I've decided where I want to place this floral wreath, I can go ahead and glue it down. I'm just adding some little dabs of glue onto the images, then adhering it onto the page. When I design layouts, I always follow the rule of thirds or rule of threes. A scrapbook page can be divided into 3 4-inch sections. So I'm going to be placing my photo at the base of this 4-inch mark, 1/3 from the bottom. By following this rule of threes or thirds, my layout is much more appealing to the eye and feels balanced. Now that my second photo has been laid down, I can start assembling my flowers. These were cut out of canary cardstock. Our cardstock is dual toned, so I was able to use 1 sheet of canary to cut out both layers. I'm going to be assembling my flowers by placing a single 3D foam dot in the center of each flower. You do have to rotate that top layer just a little bit to make sure it matches the bottom. Once I have attached all of the layers together with these flowers, I can start placing them on my layout. The largest flower has been placed up behind the photos. This mid-size will go in the corner of the largest photo and the small one going over here on the left. Before I adhere those flowers down onto the page, I want to determine the placement of these little leaf branches that I cut from white daisy cardstock and vellum. Any of you who follow me and see my projects know that I love using vellum. I love its texture, I love its opacity, I just love the way it looks on projects. I'm placing these leaves down around the large flower just to give it a little bit of layering and some texture. Now that I know where I want those leaf layers to go, I can glue them down onto the page. I did want to add a little bit of string texture to this layout using our white burlap ribbon. This is currently a clearance item on my website, so make sure you snag some before it's gone. I have shown in previous videos how I divide this and separate it into individual strings, and that is what I'm doing here. I'm cutting along one of the strings and then I will pull it apart so I have individual strands. Once I've separated those strands, I'm going to create some loops of burlap string to go behind my sunflower. Creating these loops is just like creating loops with embellishing thread. After you've created the design you like, you add a glue dot at the base and then place it down on the page. These are going to go behind the sunflower. After creating a couple sets of loops for the flower on the right side, I'm going to repeat the same process for the flower on the left. Again, creating a loop with those burlap strands, adding a glue dot at the bottom, and placing it on the page. Once the flowers have been added with 3D foam dots, then I can add those green apple leaves onto the page using some adhesive. The last little embellishment is this adorable little flag, and I cut one out of pattern paper and one out of sapphire cardstock. I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use. This one matches the patterned paper. This one has a patterned paper heart, and I do like the look of the solid cardstock a lot better. I'm going to embellish it with a bow that I'm going to tie out of some remaining burlap string. Once that bow has been glued to the flag, I'm just going to attach the flag onto the photo using a 3D foam dot. And here is our finished page using that Forever Friends layout from the Everyday Moments Cricut collection. I did make a few changes and add a few additions to this layout. The small photo mat was trimmed up quite a bit. I felt that it was too thick for the page. I also added this blue zip strip from the Mix-Ins paper pack along the top of the yellow pattern paper to finish it off. To decorate these flowers, I found these adorable round paper clips in my collection and decided it was time to use them up. I truly love the addition of that faux stitching that we created using the perforation blade on the maker. It adds so much to this layout. Quite a few of these embellishments are from that Forever Friends layout in the Everyday Moments collection. This base page was that little torn piece. I also used the photo mats and the wreath that goes around the page. I also used all of these little leaf images and the leaves that I placed on the flowers. All of the other elements that I used on my page came from other projects in that Everyday Moments collection. As you can see, I have really enjoyed playing with our new Cricut Everyday Moments collection, and I'm sure the members of our design team have also. Make sure you go down to the description below so that you can visit each person's project in our video collab hop. The next person on our creative design team is Andrea Sherman. I hope that you enjoy her Everyday Moments collection using that Forever Friends layout. New projects to inspire you are added every week to my blog and YouTube channel. If you enjoyed today's summer layout and wish to see more projects in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification icon. If you would like to see any of our past Creative Design Team video collabs, you can view the entire collection using the link above. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.